Today, I'm talking about poop. There's going to be a lot of talking about poop in this episode, so if you don't want to hear about poop and consistency of poop and color of poop in a poop app, or you don't like the word poop, then this episode's not for you. Welcome back to the best show hosted by Adam Lyttle, because it's the only show hosted by Adam Lyttle about app development and my independent app building journey as an independent app builder. There's a lot of independent parts in there because, well, I like to be independent with my app building career. I don't like to have a boss and I don't like to have clients. I've given up having clients for over a year now, actually. But this is the best podcast hosted by Adam Lyttle about app development. With that in mind, it's also the worst because it's the only one. Let's not go down that train of thought, shall we? When you start something new, it's really exciting and you're really motivated to just get stuck into it. But what I found is after a few weeks that the shiny part of it and that really exciting part of it can sort of disappear. You find you're not getting the results that you want. You find that it's actually a lot harder than you thought it was going to be, and you're finding that the gratification you're going to get from it isn't going to be immediate. It's going to be in the future. This applies to diets, it applies to creating an app business, it applies to any venture that you do that's sort of outside that norm or requires that willpower. I find myself getting stuck in my head, so I get the thought process sort of trickling in, saying like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And then I'm juggling between trying to build an app business, trying to do a podcast, and part of me saying, just drop that and focus on what works, what you know works. So I have to reframe. I have to reframe it in my head and get that motivation happening again. And it's very, very relevant to running an app business. When you first start out, you're really motivated. You can release that first version, that second version, and you might get quite a bit of interest and like a huge bump in downloads, especially on the App Store, because you get that initial boost. And then after that, the endorphins wear off and that feedback loop wears off because you're sort of chasing revenue, or you're chasing status, or you're chasing the dream. You romanticize it. So this is not turning out to be the business that I thought it was going to be. There's a lot more work and a lot more behind the scenes that has to happen. And I have to show up every day and do it. So finding myself doubting, those thoughts of doubt pop in. And I've been in this position before. I felt this before. I felt it anytime I've done something new, anytime I've tried to do something that requires a lot of that effort and that motivation. I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. So I had to remind myself, this is not about immediate sort of dopamine hits. This is a long-term strategy that you're implementing here. The work that you put in now, you won't see results until 6 to 9 months' time. In computer programming terms, the way I find myself thinking about it is there's a lag. There's a 6-month lag. The action that I do now, it's going to take 6 months to see the net positive. You're going to see some net positive, but you're not going to see it until 6 months. And that's why I've really thrown myself into it. Instead of doing one podcast a week, I'm really trying to churn out as many podcasts as I can. So in the last week, I've done 4 podcasts now. So I'm already, within 1 week, I've got a month of learning in that process. If I had have released 4 episodes over the course of a month, then I would have done the podcast, I would have sat back a bit, I would have done another podcast next week. I would only be on probably my second podcast. And like I've already identified and I've found, getting into the swing of it is quite a challenge, and it's a learning curve. And I'm really accelerating that learning curve by throwing myself into it and just doing it at scale. And then yesterday, I've had one of my first little clips go proper viral on TikTok. And I'm really excited about that. Like, I was starting to doubt it all and starting to think, like, why am I doing it? Why am I putting all this time and effort into clipping it, putting it out there, putting the subtitles on there? And then yesterday, all those concerns were sort of briefly dissipated because one of the little clips went semi-viral. Not like huge viral, but it got 4,000 views and a lot of conversation, a lot of people engaging, and that's probably organically the most that I've done on TikTok. And I've been on TikTok for 6 months now, probably longer, putting content on there. And this is the first time that I've seen some actual engagement. So that felt good. And the other thing is, like, I've actually had an uptick in downloads on the YouTube widget app because I mentioned it in the podcast and I've been putting on the clips onto TikTok. People have downloaded it and we had our biggest day of downloads on that app that I've ever had. It's so much so that it's knocked over the YouTube API because I've hit the user limits, the reached limits on it. But it's exciting. I've throttled it back, and part of the update is to do a bit more fancy caching to stop that from happening. It's taking some time. So if you've downloaded the app and it's not working at the moment, be patient. This is one of the reasons why it's free. I can go through that learning curve without burning users. There is a version coming up that's going to be monetized, and I'm going to run through all of the financials of that as time goes on. I've learned the hard way not to create apps in the medical space. Even the liability insurance won't cover medical or aviation or military uses. So it's sort of a red flag right there that if your indemnity insurance won't cover a specific topic, that you probably should stay away from it. Did I stay away from it? No. I've got 2 apps in the medical space. The first one being Poop Tracker Deluxe. On my basic market research, started out with keyword research. There was quite a high demand for Poop Tracker. In Australia, we don't really call it poop. We just call it poo, like adults. My toddler calls it poop. My kids call it poop. It's a poop tracker. I did some keyword research, and to my amazement, the keyword poop tracker is a keyword that people are searching for apps with, and there's not a whole lot of demand. There's a few apps servicing that space. They're all a bit old. They look a bit disgusting because of the content, the target market. Well, because of they're just leaning into the whole poop side of things. So I wanted to make a poop tracking app, and I was going to go down the classy poop tracking path. On the icon, it's even one of those classy Japanese toilets. All the other ones just had like a silhouette or an emoji of a poop. Now's a good time to say, drop everything you're doing, unless you're holding a newborn. If you're holding a newborn, don't drop that. Just safely put your newborn down. Safely put anything that could be dangerous to drop or could break. Put that to the side and subscribe, because I would like 501 subscribers by my birthday in July. We're currently sitting at just over 150, or right on 150 actually. So I need 350 more subscribers by my birthday in July to make me a very happy chappy. If you're not familiar with Australian lingo, happy chappy means happy boy. It'll make me a happy boy. So make sure you subscribe. I really appreciate it. Poop Tracker, that's where I was, the Poop Tracker app. It's fancy. It's a fancy Poop Tracker app. It doesn't look disgusting, and it doesn't have disgusting colors. It's blue in nature because blue is water. All the other ones are brown or yellow, pretty disgusting. So I wanted to make a classy Poop Tracker app. Pretty simple app. You have a calendar, you log your when you go to the toilet, you log the consistency and the color and the frequency. So then if your doctor's asked you to track your stools, let's just call it stools. I don't know. But anyway, if your doctor's asked you to track your poop, you will learn about the Bristol stool chart. And the Bristol stool chart is a way to rank the consistency, the color and the shape and all those sorts of things of your poop for your doctor or medical professional, or just for your own record, because there's some people that just like to record it and track it for some reason, I guess. But it's a keyword that I targeted, and I wanted to differentiate it by making it a bit nicer looking. So on your app screen, you don't have a poop icon, like a silhouette of a poop icon. So it was a pretty straightforward build. I got it up and running within about a week and a half, released it, built it all in public on Twitter. You can see the whole process of me building it there. And I released it to the App Store. And I got the nice rejection from the App Store review team that I've broken guideline 1.1, safety objectionable content. Because apparently we found that your app or metadata includes content that some users may find upsetting, offensive, or otherwise objectionable. Specifically, your binary includes poop imagery. So it got rejected. A poop tracking app that can't have poop imagery. And it's not even like I'm using photos of poop or disgusting imagery. I'm trying to make it as classy as possible. As classy as a poop tracker can be. I even use the fancy Japanese toilets for the icon. This is as fancy as these poop trackers get. And I'm being rejected because it's objectionable content. How dare you? How dare you, fine sir or ma'am at the app rejection team, app review team. How dare you? And I don't know about you, but I get this message, this rejection message, and it burrows in my brain, and I can't function unless I fix it, unless I jump on the MacBook, fix it, and send it off. But this is not just a usability issue. This is the whole app. The whole app is objectionable. But there's other apps in the App Store that have even more images of poop, and that's not objectionable. How does that work? So I tried to appeal it, and they said, look, it has poop imagery, which is offensive to some people. So I get it. It's their App Store. I have to get this app working to their requirements. So this is burrowed in my brain, and I noticed the kids, they play Among Us in the evening on the iPad. I looked over, and my son had a character with a poop emoji on his head. I look over and I think to myself, it's okay. The App Store has clearly approved Among Us having poop imagery on the game. But in a medical app, in a professional, classy poop tracking app, you're telling me that it's objectionable content and it's unsafe. And it's not even targeted at kids. Among Us is like a kids game that's targeted at kids. So this did my head in and living in my brain rent-free. But the solution that I came up with was to add a modal dialogue. By default, it wouldn't show any poop imagery inside the app itself. It would just show it would have a description of the poop to log. A description, when you first download the app, it'll have a description of the consistency of the poop instead of a image of it, unless you activated the poop imagery. And to activate it was a modal, it pops up, it says, warning, this can be offensive to some people. Would you like to activate it? Just the same way that you see like the notification pop up where it's like, we're asking for your permission to show you a notification. Or in this case, we're asking for your permission to show you imagery of poop. I submitted it to the App Store and it was accepted. Hooray. So the app's still up there. It's called Poop Tracker Deluxe. That's my first medical app that I developed. The second medical app that I've created is a pregnancy tracker app. OB Wheel for Pregnancy. The keywords OB Wheel was sought after and a lot of people searching for those keywords with low competition. This app idea came about because as you know, I've got a toddler and a newborn. The newborn just a few months ago wasn't a newborn. My partner was pregnant. She go to the obstetrician and they have like a little wheel to track your gestational age. It's a orange, yellow, and green wheel. They slide it around to the date that the conceived date or the date of the last period. And then it calculates the date of conception, the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, the approximate size of the baby, the height, and the due date. So I went ahead and I developed this app using that as the inspiration. So it's literally just the icon of the obstetrical wheel. I'm not quite sure if it's the same all across the world, but I use the same sort of imagery that the Australian obstetricians use. And the keywords I'm tracking there are pregnancy tracker and OB wheel. The app was released in the initial early days of the pregnancy, so it's really reached that stage where it's starting to mature now and getting quite a few downloads. By quite a few, it's not amazing, probably like 300 to 400 downloads per month. By my calculations, I really think that I can monetize that to generate around about $200 to $400 per month. So I set to develop some new functions and features and put a paywall into it and monetize it. My whole business model is based on releasing the app, not spending too much time on creating the first version, target the right keywords, get it up onto the App Store and get as many reviews as I can during that initial first few months. When I'm locked into the App Store in a good position where I'm getting users downloading the app day and night, I'm not spending any money on marketing, then we find that it's time to add new features and monetize it because there's users there downloading it, may as well start generating some revenue from it. So I'm building some new functionality into this app, and the whole AI craze is kicking off. Everyone is adding AI everywhere, and I come up with a brilliant idea to add AI to the obstetrician wheel pregnancy tracker app. I will have to say it's not my brightest ideas that I ever had. We'll get to that in a moment. But I'm trying to add some features and functionality into there that I think people would really enjoy having in their pregnancy tracker app. Basically, what I want to do, and in an ideal world, how it would work is you put in the gestational age of where you're at in your pregnancy. That information is fed to ChatGPT or the OpenAI API, and it says you are a obstetrician chatbot. The person you're talking to is 6 months pregnant. This is the date that the conception happened. This is the due date, all those details. So then when the user chats with the chatbot, it knows all of the non-identifiable information about their pregnancy. So they can say, like, I'm getting some aches and pains here. What's that about? And in an ideal world, the response would be, hey, you're having some aches and pains. It could be nothing. It's pretty common that these aches and pains happen at this specific time, but make sure you check in with your obstetrician to chat with it. The app update was rejected with the hardest rejection that I've ever had in my independent app building career. The rejection, when I submitted it to the App Store, by the App Store review team, I broke guideline 1.4.1. Safety, physical harm. Basically what they're saying is the app has the potential to cause physical harm to people. I'm sitting there thinking, how can this cause physical harm? I mean, ideally, anyone can be chatting with OpenAI and ChatGPT, and there's a million chatbots out there. They can ask it anything they like. How come this specific use case causes physical harm? Like, how can an app cause physical harm? And it was brought to my attention that we're dealing with some very vulnerable people, and you can't trust that the information that an OpenAI chatbot is going to give is correct, and it could hallucinate and could cause actual physical harm. And straight away I thought to myself, yeah, it can actually. This is not one of my brightest ideas, to be honest. And this is something that I should probably have thought about before I implemented. But at least the App Store review process had that check and balance to make sure that this never saw the light of day. If I was building an app or like a web app or a website, it probably would have been released, and I would never have had someone say to me, look, this is not a good idea. So in some cases, we love to hate the app review process, and we love to hate the app rejections. In one case, the poop tracker, okay, it was really annoying, and I guess they're just protecting users. In the other case, causing actual physical harm, not something I considered, but it's not something I want on my conscience. So I think they got it right in that case. I rolled back all the updates. It's still unmonetized. It's still on the App Store. It's just sitting there in its original state. And I guess what I really want to get across, and the point that I'm really trying to make, is that the apps that I create are based on my own experiences And then I look at the keywords to see if there's actually anyone looking for these apps. And that's my validation process. Come up with the idea or an experience in my life. The app ideas come about. I shortlist them all. And then I look at the keyword, the competition of the keyword, how competitive the keyword is, and how many people are actually searching for that keyword. And then that helps me to determine whether I'm going to build that app or not. So I'm going to wrap it up. Remember to subscribe. I really would appreciate to get to that 501 subscribers. You are that number one. So when I reach 501 subscribers, I will look to you and I'll look down the camera and I'll say, I couldn't have done it without you. You are that number one in that 501 subscribers. So subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. If you don't have Spotify, download Spotify just to subscribe. And if you don't have Apple Podcasts or you don't have an iPhone, buy an iPhone, download Apple Podcasts and subscribe.